So what I want to do now is stand up and just make an offering of a kata and a few little auspicious prayers to Lama Zopa's throne. So I'll do that now. You can stay there if you like. You're all sitting there fine, it's fine. Where's Rinpoche's throne?
Like that.
There he is. Right. And this is Holiness's throne. Yeah. So we should have at least 2 katas. Have we got at least 2 katas?
Yeah.
Sorry. There's one. Thank you, darling. Wonderful. Thank you, darling. And another kata. So just all of us together, in our minds, we imagine we've just arrived and we run straight to the holy beings and make our offerings before we do anything else. We imagine we're doing that right now. So I offer on behalf of all of us. Thank you. His Holiness first. And you know, one thing Tibetans do, you come up here and you do your own personal prayer and you kind of bonk your head on it for a little blessing. You can do that if you like. And the meaning of these katas, I don't know how, it's a very ancient Tibetan thing, just cultural, you know. I mean, from when you used to go away, and your grandmother would put one around your neck, or you'd come back and you'd get one, sort of auspiciousness. And then also in teachings in relation to lamas, you would offer one. And so when you offer it, you'd have it equal like this. And if you offer it with the opening, you'd think, may I always be open to the teachings. And if you offer it this way, may I never be separate from the teachings. So it proves emptiness. You make it what, you call it that, and it becomes that. So we're just going to offer to His Holiness, thinking, you know, even if we don't know about all these people, I mean, they say he's a Buddha, so he's a manifestation of these enlightened minds. A good example for us, and we think how amazing when we continue to connect with him from life to life. And the fact that we've even heard his name in this life means he's hooked us in one life or other. Could have been 1,000 lifetimes ago. He got us. So here we are. Listen to his teaching. And may we become like him. May we become a Buddha like him. Thinking this way, you know. And the same as Lama Zopa, you might not know him, but this holy being whose place this is. For some of us, our Lama. May we become him. That's the function of a Lama. They show you how you can become, you know. So maybe you see that, maybe have our open hearts, may our hearts open in this place, so we can receive the energy of all these beings who've been here meditating, you know, getting realizations, so we can also get those realizations. Oops. Can someone help me here? Oh, and can you clean up the dirt? I just put some dirt there. Look. Let's hope that's a good sign. Purification. Put it back in the ground. That was group purification. The dirt did indeed come out. It literally came out. So we visualise it's our dirt coming out. Aren't we lucky? All right. That's it. I need to be dropped into this cloak. It's a bit difficult otherwise. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I can't see it. I'm just looking at the door. I can't see any human beings. It's a problem, you know. I've got to talk to the door. What can I do?
I'll put it over here, okay?
Okay, fine. All right. Leave it like this, perfectly. We've got your prayer books. Open up your prayer books, and we'll just do a couple at the beginning. Thank you so much. In the mornings, we'll do our morning puja. Certain prayers we'll sing every morning. They're kind of like refuge prayer, different things. We'll explain in the morning. We'll do those. So I'll have to find my digital copy of it. Let's see if I've got it. Yeah, let's have a look. All right, let's see if I've got a copy. Here we go. Yes. All right. So, with a different time, there's lots of different prayers in here. This was something that Rinpoche first gave us. In 2001, we did our first pilgrimage. I spent a couple of hours on the phone and they gave instructions for the different kinds of practices to do at the different places on pilgrimage in India. Clearly that's not here, but we can, take the essence from it and the learning from it. And it's helpful to read that first part anyway, advice from Lama Zopa about pilgrimages, about circumambulating, about prostrations, all these things. See if you. So the prayers and practices, let's just start with the Heart Sutra, page 40. We'll do that now, it's auspicious for us. We did that one time, I know. We visualise that with page 40 or something. Got it? So we imagine we're in Vajragir, up in Vajra Peak, little spot up the top there, right on the top of a little hill, very small. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and holy beings all there in the sky hanging out. And Buddha's there in meditation, in Samadhi, and he's channeling his teachings into the mouths and minds and mouths of Shariputra, one of his main disciples, and Avalokitesvara, who is Chenrezig, but he's in the form of a human. And they're having this conversation. And basically, and we're going to talk about this over these days, what this is basically really is just a list of the different groups of phenomena that exist in the universe according to this model of the universe, and how each and every one of them is empty of inherent existence. Of course, we'll discuss all that. So we make this aspiration just by saying these words, Buddha's words. We put this powerful imprints in our mind of these words, so that we will indeed ourselves realize this, which is the main. All the teachings of the Buddha lead to this one, to the final wisdom that has cut the root of all the delusions and sees things as they exist ultimately. Thus did I hear at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on Mass of Vulture's mountain in Rajagriha, you can say it with me together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokitesvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokitesvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokitesvara, said this to the Venerable Sharadvatiputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, and form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. No visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no eye element and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it's not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared: Ta ta, om gate gate, para samgate, bodhi soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokitesvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharavathiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokitesvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So, what I'll do just right now, is present this package, the essence, like the bullet points of this package of Buddha's teachings, in this structure, this package, that Tsongkhapa, the 14th century lineage lama of our tradition called the Gelugpas, and I'll answer that question later, that we discussed before, that Bill mentioned. And he packaged the teachings, as we mentioned, he called it the Lam-rim, a gradual path. Well, I like to use the concept of a course. That's how we call it. If you study for 7 years, 10 years, 5 years, a body of knowledge, you call it a course, And we all know with courses, it's the beginning stuff first, the more advanced and the most advanced. It's very logical. It's the most natural thing. We understand this so easily. Everything we've ever learned, we learn it like that. So Tsongkhapa structured it and in 3 different levels. So the way Lama Zopa, respecting the lineage, would translate it in English, the first level of it is called the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the least capability. Sometimes they refer to it as the lowest scope. In other words, the scope of the teachings you cover there. Well, I know it's just a cliche, but for me I find it so helpful when I refer to that as junior school. We know immediately what that means. So, it's a bit of a misnomer, because even junior school Buddhism is like so advanced you can't believe it. But nevertheless, it means it's the first level of teachings, and it's got a very specific meaning. It's in relation to the motivation and the scope of the practices you do that will bring a certain result. Then the next level, is called the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the middle capability, or the middle scope teachings. And then that, or if you like, high school. And if you practice those, that'll get you a bit further, and and then the scope of those is broader and will bring you more realizations. Then you've got the teachings and practices suitable to the disciple of the greatest capability, or if you like, university. And then you've got, if you like, you can say postgraduate, which is Tantra. So to answer the question before about Mahayana, where does that fit? Well, okay, in the whole of, so step back for a second. In the whole of Buddhism, all of Buddhist teachings from A to Z fit into this structure. So the teachings that you would study and practice in, say, Burma and Thailand, known in the world broadly as Theravadan Buddhism, but in this context here we've got 2 levels. So the junior school and high school, or the first and second scopes, that's the teachings that you would practice and study in Burma and Thailand, and it's known as the Theravadan teachings, but another way it's referring to it is the Hinayana, a lesser vehicle. It's not meant to be insulting. And all the practices you do in those stages, if you graduated there, if you graduated at the middle scope, that's the extent of the practices and teachings that you would do and accomplish if you studied in Burma and Thailand. And that's where you would achieve your own nirvana. So if you graduated high school, you do junior school, you do all the things, and we'll describe all this. And then most of the teachings there would say, and this is the interpretations of Buddha's teachings, there are many on the planet, they would say that's as far as most people can go. And you would, at that point, you would achieve your liberation. You would achieve your own nirvana, your own cessation of suffering. And you'd finish at some life or other. You'd finally get out of here. You won't come back to rebirth. You're done. You're cooked. You're finished. Then you've got, and another. So then you've got the Mahayana component. That's the Hinayana component. Then you've got the Mahayana, which is university level, and that's the teachings that include not just what we've said already. You'd also do those, and we're going to go through all those stages, but you'd add on to it this next stage. You wouldn't graduate at high school. You wouldn't graduate from the middle scope. You wouldn't graduate there. You would continue to be reborn, and you would then continue to work on your mind and accomplish what's called bodhicitta, this extraordinary aspiration based upon extraordinary compassion, which we'll talk about, that causes you to never give up life after life, perfecting yourself to become a Buddha eventually, because then you can manifest in countless bodies throughout space to benefit sentient beings. So this is emphasis on masses, more compassion and love, that culminates in bodhicitta, and then you accomplish Buddhahood. So if you're on that Mahayana path, and they're the teachings that you would study if you're in Japan, for example, in Thailand, or to some degree in Japan, you've got the Mahayana component, the Mahayana teachings. But then you know, the final stage, the postgraduate, you only find that in Tibet, and that's, all of these has come from India. Everything came from India, obviously. All the teachings that, you know, then went for the 4th century first, I think, to China, and then from there to Japan, and then eventually to the other countries in Southeast Asia, and in Tibet in the 8th century with Guru Rinpoche. There he is there. You can't see his head, he's so big. Have a look behind you. He's enormous. Had to make the ceiling go up. See him? That's Guru Rinpoche. And he was the one who first brought it here to Tibet. So that's the Mahayana. The Mahayana is the compassion wing, the 2 wings of the bird, the compassion wing, and then in the Tibetan tradition, the only country on the planet, I think, now where the Vajrayana, where the postgraduate teachings are extant. And that's, another word for that is the Tantric teachings. And Tibetan Buddhism is all of those stages. So everything you do in Burma and Thailand, the first and second scopes of practices, if you're practicing here, in this package, you do those practices here. Then you go on to the Mahayana component, which you might do in Japan as well, and in Tibet, but you can do those too. And then finally the Vajrayana, which is the postgraduate level. That's the way of saying it. Is that clear, roughly speaking? So the essence, if you want the essence of all of junior school, the essence, it culminates, the essence is abide by the laws of karma, don't harm sentient beings, back off, control your body, speech and mind, discipline your body, speech and mind, live in vows and purify negative karma. That's the essence of junior school, and the result of that, the scope, that's the scope of those teachings, and the result of that is guaranteed you'll keep getting nice, decent human rebirths. You won't go down to the lower realms because you refrain from negative karma, you refrain from harming sentient beings, you purify your negative karma, and you're as we say in Australia, you're on a good wicket. So you continue to get reborn in very nice rebirths. That's the scope of the first level of practice. But you can go further. So you go to high school, and now you get into the essence of Buddha's teachings, where you become you really practice you go to a deeper level, and now you practice working on your mind. You get shamatha, you can get that earlier if you want to, and then you learn the Buddhist model of the mind, and you delve deeper into your mind, unpacking and unraveling, distinguishing the neuroses from the virtues, getting rid of the delusions. You eventually, you realize about emptiness, and in some life or other, you perfect that, and then you out of here. You're gone, you're finished, you're done. You can get out of samsara altogether. But you can go further. That's the scope of the second level. You can go further. So the essence of the second scope, the essence of the first scope is your behavior, body and speech. Mainly behavior. Control your body and speech. Begin to control your mind too, but stop creating negative karma. The essence of the second scope is control your mind, work on your mind, get rid of the delusions, and and then you realize emptiness. Now you go to the university level, and the essence of that is bodhicitta, this outrageous aspiration, the brave attitude of the bodhisattvas, when you start to realize that the whole universe is we're all in the same boat. Everybody's crazy, everyone's suffering, everybody blames everybody else, no one knows why they're happy, no one knows why they're suffering, and we keep creating more suffering. It's a nightmare. And once you realize this for yourself in the first and second scopes, you realize, oh my God, how can I possibly leave any sentient being behind? I must continue to work on my mind, develop this amazing bodhicitta, this incredible aspiration to never give up, working on yourself so you can become this amazing being, so you can be a benefit to sentient beings and become a Buddha. That's the scope of the greatest scope, the university level. And then the Vajrayana is within the Mahayana, but it's the more advanced levels of the Mahayana, the great vehicle, Mahayana, great vehicle. Then and these most advanced, most sophisticated level of teachings, the goal is the same, Buddhahood, but there's more sophisticated level of Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist psychology, the Vajrayana, the Tantric teachings, and you incorporate those into your practice as well, and that speeds up your Buddhahood. And the main cause of your wanting to speed up is because you can't stand the suffering of sentient beings. You have such compassion. So that's the path to enlightenment. And we're going to cover the components of all of that. So when you know this structure, I think it's the same in any body of knowledge. If you're learning music, you know perfectly well, you have to know where you're at. You have to know how far you've come, and you have to know how far you're going to go. Every body of knowledge is the same, but when it comes to spiritual, we just become really ridiculous. We don't think like that. But that's completely crucial. And when you understand these main pieces of Buddha's teachings, and this packaging of the Lam-rim is you open up any book of teachings, any page, and you read one sentence, you will know exactly, is it junior school, is it high school, is it university, or is it postgraduate? It has to fit. All bodies of knowledge has to fit into the structure, you know. There can't be some music that doesn't fit into the structure of the music course. And you have to know where it's at. Is it grade 1? Is it grade 3? Is it advanced? Is it middle? And when you know that, you get a sense of where all these teachings fit. Otherwise, it's just this chaos. It's so confusing to us. And then we give them all equal status, but they haven't got equal status. They're different levels of practices. So you could say, in any one day, if you say a mantra, that's Tantra, that's postgraduate. You might be kind to somebody, that's compassion wing. You might control your thoughts, that's high school. You might control your body, that's junior school. So when you know these different teachings and where they all fit, no matter how vast the philosophy is, no matter you go back to all this information to this Lam-rim, this packaging that Tsongkhapa put together. What he did was he took the essence from the vast body of knowledge, from the previous 1,000 or 1,500 years of Buddha's teachings, coming back before that to the Hindus, this huge body of knowledge of this world view which is Buddhism. He got the essence of all of those teachings, from all the philosophy, all the psychology, all the metaphysics. He got the essence of them, and he presented it in this Lam-rim. And this is based on a text that Atisha wrote, this amazing Indian yogi and saint and scholar who was invited to Tibet in the 11th century. And he wrote a little text that Tsongkhapa used as his basis for his Lam-rim. And all that is the essence of all the teachings, all the philosophy, all the psychology. And it's presented in this orderly way. Orderly, like I'm saying, in terms of your capacity as a disciple, and orderly experientially. Because it's easy to get so seduced by the philosophy. But all the point of the Lam-rim is to see the experiential aspect, the experiential implication of all these teachings. As Tsongkhapa says in one of his wonderful Lam-rim little texts, Songs of Experience, it's one of our prayers, we might recite it, these lovely verses. That, as he said, there's no contradiction between scripture and practice. Everything is to be taken as sound advice. Every word in this package. If there's anything in all these instructions, in all the metaphysics, in all the psychology, in all the meditations, in all the philosophy, if there's anything that doesn't help you, 1, lessen your delusions, and 2, grow your goodness, it's a load of rubbish. Don't do it. It's superstition. So everything has to fit into that. And that's why we need to be very rigorous and disciplined in our own understanding of the path, and knowing where all the teachings fit, and having valid teachers because there's so much there's so much rubbish out there, especially in the modern world, where we don't think it matters. Anyone can write a book about whatever they feel. So it's really important to check, to really have confidence that if you do, let's say, pursue your Buddhist path, that you have valid teachers and valid source. And you've got to use your intelligence, to really check that carefully. Then you won't make mistakes. So we're going to touch on all these main points. But what I thought I would also do during our time is refer to Lama Yeshe's wonderful book called Maha Mudra, which came out last year in September, which is a way of meditating on emptiness. It's very delicious. And just reading from that. But also I want to read from the, years ago, at Kopan, one of those big stupas, the bigger of the 2 stupas in the garden at Kopan, that's the stupa of Geshe Lama Konchog. Did you see those relics? You saw his relics, some of you?
Yep.
No.
Yes.
You went to see his relics. Okay. I'll talk about relics too. But he spent the last 20 years of his life in Kopan, and he was a friend of Lama Yeshe from Sero J Monastery in the 40s and 50s. So, but he also he lived in cave for many years. I mentioned he lived in a cave for many years, way up in the border of Tibet and Nepal, right at the other end of Nepal. And we started working on his biography. I've got some of his biography, and it's very, very moving, these stories of these great yogis, talk about hardships. It's very inspiring, so I'm going to read a bit from him, and it's nice to hear these stories. It kind of inspires us. So that's what we'll do, and we'll try and do a bit of meditation. But my friend Venerable Lundut sitting next to me here says she doesn't like leading meditations, but she's done masses of meditations. I think it's very rude that she doesn't lead us in some plain, simple watching our mind meditation. Would you like to do that? Please. Would you do that for me?
I'll do that for you.
Thank you very much. She's an expert. She's a meditator. Far more than me, believe me. I just say words. She's done real serious work on meditating. So she can And that's really what she's done over the years. It's Maha Mudra. It's Maha Mudra really. And we'll talk about it from Lama's book, and then she can lead you in some meditations, exactly as she wishes. But nothing else. You won't leave anything else besides that. We'll see how it goes. Thank you very much. Otherwise, she's wasting her time here. If she doesn't use her skills, we can chuck her out. Okay? Thank you, Linda. She's my friend. So, that's it. I think it's dinner by now. Let's have a look. What time is it? No, it's only 6:10. So, any questions about what we discussed? Any questions? Did that answer for you? Did that get clear about Mahayana? Who asked it? Bill. Who asked it? Did that answered? Not quite. Oh, okay, I'll say it again. One way of dividing the whole of... Oh, good afternoon.
Sorry.
You can close the door after you. So, one way of dividing all of Buddhism on the whole planet is into two levels, Hinayana and Mahayana. The teachings of Tibet, say Burma and Thailand, that's about Hinayana they call it. But they call it Theravadan. So Theravadan, over the years, there's many different interpretations of Buddhist teachings that have been developed. And in the Tibetan monastic university system, you study Buddhist tenets. So it all presents all these different views. So apparently Theravadan, which is how they call it in those countries, is one of the only remaining of 18 schools of thought in this first particular interpretation of Buddhist teachings. There's many levels of it. So it's generally known as Theravadan. So that's, in this context here, that's junior school and high school. You live in vows, you control your body and speech, you get some concentration, you control your mind, you get rid of attachment, you eventually realise emptiness, you achieve your own nirvana, and at one life or other that happens, and you're out of here, you don't come back. That's Hinayana. Then you've got the Mahayana, which is adding the component of the Bodhichitta one. But you want to keep coming back because you can't bear the suffering of all others, and you become a Buddha. So the first level, the term they use in Sanskrit is you become an arhat. You become, actually it's used in different contexts, but you become an arhat. You're liberated from suffering. And then the other ones, you become a Buddha. And that's got the compassion wing as well. That's Mahayana. You're a bit clearer now.
Bodhichitta path.
The Bodhichitta path, exactly right. That's exactly right. But you've got to do the other stuff first.
Yeah.
It's not like they're options. So junior school and high school is one lot, and another lot's junior school, high school, and university. And then you've got Vajrayana, then you've got the Vajrayana and the postgraduate as well, which is only in Tibet. You with me?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What else, people? Some questions about that? Just a package.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Are you going to, or can you instruct us in prostration? You mentioned...
If you'd like that, Chuck, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody who'd like to learn, of course we can do that.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had a question about the Heart Sutra.
Yes, Owen.
So I was just wondering why it's called the Heart Sutra, because it seems to be about the mind and.
I know. I think it's known. What have you heard, children? What do you know? Any?
Well, just the heart of the perfection of wisdom. I think it's the
What
essence,
it's called.
The prajna paramita, all the wisdom teachings of the Buddha, and their 100,000 verses, and then there are 24,000 verses, and then there are 8,000 verses of it. They're all packaged differently. In the
all about emptiness, and this is the baby one.
Right, in the heart
essence
Sutra
of
is
it.
the essence of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, there's one that's more essential, and it's the syllable ah.
Oh, there you go. The syllable R. Well, that's quick, isn't it?
Okay. I think I could manage that.
There you go.
And is that high school? Would that come in?
No, okay, that's an interesting point. All right. So if you're on the Theravadan path, if you're on the Hinayana path, emptiness itself is a high school teaching, is a middle scope teaching, is a Hinayana teaching, because you've got to have that to get to liberate it. But in the Mahayana framework, it's taught in the framework of what's called the perfections of the Bodhisattva. And at the different stages in the Bodhisattva wing, the first level you achieve Bodhichitta. The next stage of your practice is you practice the 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva. And the first 4 are the perfection of the compassion wing, if you like, and the last 2 are the perfection of the wisdom wing, and that's concentration and emptiness. So concentration is not even a Buddhist teaching, it's a Hindu teaching. And that's also taught at high school. So if you're on the Hinayana path, you learn concentration, shamatha, and then you learn emptiness, and you combine those. But on the Mahayana, you can practice them any time you like. But on the Mahayana, they're taught in the framework of the Mahayana path.
Okay.
You understand? Yeah. Because there are different levels of teachings on emptiness.
Mm.
Yeah. What else? What else, people? Just for this evening, quick short thing. So the wisdom, it's just a way of saying, very loose really, but the wisdom wing, I love that analogy. I just find it so beneficial, so powerful, you know. The wisdom wing, really, the way of saying it is that that's all about you. It's the nuts and bolts of Buddha's teachings. The nuts and bolts of karma and the mind, which in the literature is vast, absolutely vast, you know. It's the nuts and bolts of Buddha's views of the universe that you need yourself to get you the hell out of samsara. You've got to achieve that first. Not get out of samsara. You've got to have that under your belt. You've got to understand karma first, then understand the mind. And that's the essence of junior school and high school. And that's the stuff that you've got to do on yourself. That's how you understand suffering and its causes, so you can get the hell out of suffering. And it's only then that you're able to go to the compassion wing and we'll start to realize everybody's in the same boat. So I've got to continue to want to help them and then the real compassion you get, and we'll discuss this, without understanding karma, the level of compassion that Buddha described is impossible to have unless we understand karma. So compassion is not enough, as His Holiness says. You've got to have wisdom first. And wisdom in general just means getting clear. Wisdom in general is distinguishing between delusions and virtue. That's what wisdom is. I mean, just understanding how things are is wisdom. So 1 plus 2, 1 plus 1 is 2 is wisdom. That's correct. It's a valid cognition, you know. Anything we've established even as ordinary conventional truth, that's wisdom. And it's implying Buddha's whole point that we're living in la-la land right now because these delusions run the show. So we're living in a world made up by our delusions, the lenses through which we see the world mistakenly. So the wisdom is getting rid of your delusions to whatever degree, which is what brings you your happiness. So then you continue working on your mind, removing even subtle levels of delusions and developing bodhicitta so you can be a benefit to others, you know. But wisdom is preparation. I mean, it's like if you want to help somebody be a doctor, help someone with their health. If you haven't learned acupuncture, how can you help anybody? You're useless. So the wisdom wing is how you learn about how things are, so then you're equipped to help others. Because you can now interpret them, understand them. You can do it for yourself first. Utterly necessary. You don't wait till you've perfected it before you help others. Like I said, you can practice all stages in one day. You say a mantra, that's Vajrayana. You be kind to others, that's Mahayana. Compassion wing. You control your mind, that's high school. You control your speech, that's junior school. You can do all of them, but you won't, like in any body of knowledge, you won't accomplish high school until you've accomplished, to some degree, junior school. You can't accomplish university until you've accomplished levels of the previous ones. It's logical. And when you've got this framework, it's a powerful way to help you see all the teachings and see where they fit together. Otherwise, just this random kind of pieces of information that gets very confusing to us, you know. Yeah. So in daily life, you can think too, okay, one way of describing all the teachings too is in terms of the level, this is the meaning of the scope of the teachings, is in terms of the motivation. So the motivation of the first level of practice is to get out, is to stop being reborn in the lower realms. That's the scope of your motivation. Your motivation, your goal is to stop suffering rebirths. So that causes you to practice virtue. The next level, your motivation is broader. You want to get out of samsara altogether. So you want to give up attachment even, and then realize emptiness. And the motivation of the greatest one, the compassion wing, is the motivation to become a Buddha. So the motivation also is a way of describing the different scopes, the different levels of practice. And that's a really powerful point. When we understand this, it really helps live our lives in a much more efficient way, you know, when we understand the meaning of what motivation is. We don't kind of think this way ourselves, but we do if we frame it differently, you'll see. It's how you think about something, how the meaning you give something is what it becomes for you. And that's when we need to understand that right at the beginning of junior school, when we practice abiding by the laws of karma, which we'll go into, you know. So, of course, the way to take all this is our hypothesis. It's the only way to say it, you know. There's a whole world view that's quite radically different from the materialist world, in many ways radically different from the creative religions. It's a radically different view of seeing the world. you can't just swallow it whole. We're not just trying to blindly believe it. So the only way to say it, which is the way I say it to myself, and I find that so the best way to put it, you take it as your working hypothesis. And surely anything you're learning is what you do. Even 1 + 1 is 2. At some point you've never heard of that. Someone tells you that for the first time. You can't prove it from the first moment by definition. So then you take it as your hypothesis. You listen to your teacher, you have confidence she's speaking the truth, you take it on faith, you go home and you prove it for yourself. That's when you prove it to be true. But first it's a hypothesis. Everything has to be this way. Whereas we're so used to thinking of religion as just believing, you know, and it's useless. It's intellectual laziness. It won't help. In the long run it doesn't help. We have to prove it to ourselves, step by baby step. And the point that I find so powerful, which we can see in ordinary bodies of knowledge, that if there is a body of knowledge that is valid, a body of knowledge, not just random ideas put together, but a body of knowledge, if it is valid, it first has to be coherent theoretically. I think everybody can prove that. I think no one can disprove that. It first has to be coherent theoretically. That's very powerful, you know. I mean, you could pass an acupuncture exam without having put a needle in anybody. That's a fact. Doesn't mean you're an acupuncturist yet, but it means that the knowledge is coherent, theoretically. We don't think of religion like that. And that's the Buddhist point. And that's up to us to find out. They say that we go through this process, and this can be applied to any body of knowledge, you know. Let's just use the example of acupuncture. Let's say 60 years ago in, you know, like for us, like in Melbourne, let's say. I'd never heard of acupuncture 60 years ago. So the first time you hear it, because it's opposite to the body of knowledge you're used to, which you take as the truth, and surely in our culture, in Melbourne, the allopathic system was the only one anybody heard of, so you take that as a given. That's the body of knowledge. It's not a wrong view. No, so that is a body of knowledge that we have a view of. So that's the one we think is true. So let's say I hear for the first time, these Chinese people put needles in you. The first time you hear it, you think it's a load of rubbish. What are you talking about? Don't be ridiculous. And why you say that is because it completely contradicts what you believe already. So the first level, we start off with wrong view. Don't be ridiculous. Acupuncture is absurd. What are you talking about? That's the first response. Then let's say you have an open mind and you start to look into it. So then you go to the next level. From wrong view, you now go to what they call doubt. But doubt tending towards the wrong view. You start to study it, not study it even, just start to listen and think and check up and start researching, which means you've got to have an open mind. And you go, well, you know, maybe it's possible after all. No, it can't be true. But you keep looking, keep checking, keep studying, you keep moving, and you start to seriously looking into it, and now you have doubt tending towards the right view. Now that's pretty powerful already. Most of us with Buddhism won't even get to that stage, which already demands masses of study, masses of analysis, masses of meditating. Doubt tending towards the right view. You continue to work, you continue to study, you continue to practice, and then you get to what they call right belief, which is really powerful. That's a really high realization even, where you're so confident. Next stage, even more powerful, they call it inferential knowledge. In other words, you could pass your exam in acupuncture. You've got all the theories clear, because every time you keep studying, all the pieces fit together, the pieces of the puzzle. That means, oh, now I get that piece. Oh, that proves that piece. Oh, now I understand that piece. All the bits start to cohere as this big coherent body of knowledge. So that's called inferential certainty. You can have that. You can have that with certainty. Then eventually it becomes experiential, and that's when you've got genuine experience. That's when you have the actual experiential knowledge of it. So everything we learn goes through those stages. And of course the point is, you know, it's not blindly, when we think of religion, and I mean as a Catholic, nothing wrong with that. It's a really important point. Because God is superior to everybody, God did make the universe, God made up everything, then my job is not to prove God right. That would be shocking. My job is to have faith in God. Nothing wrong with that. And that is blind faith. There's nothing wrong with that, because there's no other alternative. You can't become God. That's the worst sin of pride in the universe. Not possible. So you have to have that view. So we bring that view into this. There's many aspects that are very similar. But it's the point of it is to become your own Buddha, which means you have to prove it to be true. You have to end up with direct experiential knowledge. And that's when you prove it. And as the Holy Dalai Lama says, as you go through these stages, if at some point you can actually prove that Buddha is wrong, then you must reject him, you know. Just go, that's what experiential means. So that's why for me I say, well, so far so good. I mean, I'm happy with Buddha. I haven't proven him wrong yet. So far, the little bit that I've learned, he says anger makes you miserable. I can prove that. That much I've proven. Control your mouth, it makes people miserable. That I've proven. So far so good. I'm prepared to keep going until I find him wrong. I'm happy with that. So we delight in all this, enjoy it, listen to it, think about it, process it, leave some stuff behind if you don't like it, put it there. But we're big girls and boys. We're brave. We can hear things we don't like. It's not going to hurt us. It's only thoughts. It's all just thoughts anyway. We've sown these seeds, we think how fantastic. May we develop our marvellous potential for our sake and the sake of others. Jangchub Semchog, Rupoche, Ma Ke Panam, Ke Guchi, Ke Panyampa, Me Payang, Gong Ne, Gong Du, Herba Shog. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Let's have dinner. And then, no, we're blessed dinner now. We'll do it together instead of waiting for each other. So think of dinner like we did this for tea. Think of it as having no inherent existence. We dissolve into space, visualize it in a big fat container in the sky, bless it with Oma Hung melting into it, transcendental nectar, big as the universe. And think of all the Buddhas, all the Gurus, all the suffering sentient beings experiencing the joy of receiving it. Lama Sangha Lama Che Deja Lama Gedun Che Gungi Debo Lama Che Lama Namla Sher Pabo. And when you see it, the essence of the wisdom wing, think it doesn't have an inherent nature, and the essence of the compassion wing, eat it for the sake of sentient beings. Then you've got both wings right there in your dinner. Makes it worthwhile. Thank you, people.